The drums beat lazily in the dusty village square as Shinaza sat in her mother's old wrapper, her face painted with powder but her eyes filled with tears. Around her, women whispered, men smirked, and children laughed openly. They say a booker borrowed that shoot from the town drunkard. One woman muttered loud enough for Shinaza to hear. Imagine fine Shinaza marrying a ragged mechanic. Another mocked, shaking her head. Shinaza's heart pounded as she looked at her groom. A booker stood at the front, tall but wearing a faded brown suit. The sleeves hung too short, and his sandals were worn out. Yet his posture was calm, his smile humble. When the priest asked, "Do you take this man as your husband?" Shinaza hesitated. Her uncle, seated in the front row, shot her a warning glare. He had arranged a marriage, insisting a booker was the only one available. Shinaza swallowed her pride and whispered, "I do." The crowd chuckled. As they exchanged vows, a booker slipped a plain band onto her finger. The ring was cheap, scratched, almost insulting compared to the golden fantasies Shinaza once dreamed of. But when a booker held her hands, he whispered, "I may not have much, but I promise you peace." The words should have soothed her, but surrounded by mockery, they sounded like defeat. When the ceremony ended, villagers joked, she married poverty itself. Shinaza lowered her head, but a booker walked beside her with quiet dignity. For him, it wasn't shame. It was a beginning of something no one in that crowd could ever imagine. Their new home was a one-room apartment at the edge of the village. The zinc roof leaked in places, and the walls bore cracks. Shinaza looked around in disgust. "This is where you expect me to live," she snapped. A booker, placing down their small wedding basket, answered gently, "It's what I can afford now, but I'll make sure you never lack food." Shinaza scoffed. "Food? What about dignity? A booker? What about respect? You condemn me to shame." That night, she lay on the only bed, turning her back to him. A booker spread an old mat on the floor. In the silence, he whispered, "Shinaza, I may not have wealth, but I'll protect you with my life." She didn't reply. Instead, she cried softly into her pillow. In her mind, her life had ended. Meanwhile, outside their window, the villagers passed by singing, "Beauty wasted on poverty." Their laughter echoed into the room, stabbing her pride. A booker closed his eyes and endured. He had chosen this path deliberately, but Shinaza would only understand much later. By the following week, the whole market buzzed with mockery. "Did you see a booker's bride?" She looked like she was attending a funeral, a tomato seller said. Another laughed, "Poor girl. She'll soon learn that love cannot cook soup." Shinaza's stomach tightened as she walked past with her basket. Women giggled behind her back, and children mimicked a booker's ragged look. When she returned home, she confronted him angrily. "Do you hear them? They laugh at us every single day. Aren't you ashamed?" A booker wiped grease from his hands after fixing a customer's bicycle. "Shinaza, people will always talk. Let them. Their laughter doesn't define me." "You don't care because you're used to poverty," she fired back. A booker's voice remained calm. "No, I don't care because I know what I carry inside me. You'll see, one day." Shinaza frowned. His words sounded strange, but she dismissed them, thinking he was simply consoling himself with empty pride. Despite her hostility, a booker treated Shinaza with kindness. When she woke one morning coughing from the cold, he prepared hot tea with ginger. When she refused it, he still placed it beside her bed. At night, he washed her clothes quietly while she slept, hanging them under the moonlight. One evening, when Shinaza fainted at the stream, a booker carried her all the way home on his back, sweating but never complaining. When she opened her eyes, she whispered weakly, "Why do you care so much when I treat you so badly?" A booker smiled. "Because I didn't marry you for comfort. I married you for partnership. Even if you hate me now, I'll keep showing you love." Shinaza looked away, but deep inside, her heart trembled. She couldn't understand how a man so poor could carry such dignity, such patience. It was past midnight when Shinaza stirred from sleep. She heard a booker's voice outside, low but commanding. "Yes, ensure the documents are signed before Friday. No, the investors must not panic. Transfer the funds into the offshore account as discussed. Chinaza's eyes widened. She crept to the window, peering out. A booker paced the yard, phone pressed to his ear, speaking English as fluently as a foreign returnee. This was not the broken, poor mechanic she thought she knew. His tone was authoritative, his words sharp. When he re-entered, she pretended to be asleep, but her heart pounded wildly. The next morning, she asked casually, "Who were you talking to last night?" A booker paused, then smiled faintly. "Just a friend." "A friend? Friends don't talk about investors and offshore accounts." A booker looked into her eyes and replied firmly, "One day, you'll understand, but not today." Chinaza's confusion deepened. For the first time, doubt crept into her resentment. Who exactly was the man she had married? The morning sun streamed into their small room as Chinaza swept the floor. A booker's phone buzzed on the wooden stool. She ignored it at first, until the message lit up the screen. 45 million Nigerian naira credited. Her hands froze. 45 million naira? Her breath caught as she stared. Her husband, who wore torn sandals and patched trousers, had that kind of money in his account? The door creaked. A booker walked in, carrying a bag of vegetables. Chinaza jumped, dropping the phone. You have millions in your account," she gasped, trembling. "All this time, you let me suffer. You let them laugh at me when you have money hidden." A booker placed the bag down slowly, his eyes calm. "Chinaza, it's not what you think." "Not what I think." Her voice rose. "You've been lying to me all this time? Who are you really, a booker?" He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "One day, you'll understand everything. But for now, trust me." But Chinaza shook her head. "Trust? How can I trust a man who hides millions while his wife is mocked for being poor?" For the first time, a booker's eyes darkened. He picked up his phone and said quietly, "Don't confuse patience for weakness. Chinaza, some truths are dangerous before their time." Her skin prickled with unease. What exactly had she stumbled into? Weeks later, Chinaza's curiosity overcame her fear. One Saturday morning, a booker told her he was traveling to Lagos to see a client. Suspicion burned in her chest. She followed him secretly, boarding the same bus but sitting at the back. When they arrived in the city, she trailed him through bustling streets until he entered a grand five-star hotel, the type only the wealthy frequented. Chinaza's jaw dropped. A booker, in his ragged shirt, walked past the uniformed guards. They didn't stop him. They bowed slightly. She crept in, hiding behind pillars. Inside, a booker strode confidently to the VIP lounge. Suited men rose to greet him, their voices deferential. "Sir, we finalized the contracts. Your presence alone has reassured the investors." Chinaza's knees weakened. They were calling him sir, not mechanic, not pauper. "Sir." She watched as he signed documents with steady hands, his demeanor regal. The man before her wasn't her ragged husband. He was someone else entirely. Tears filled her eyes. "Who did I marry?" she whispered. That night, when a booker returned home, Chinaza confronted him. "I saw you," she said, her voice trembling. A booker stopped in his tracks. "Saw me?" "In that hotel, with those men. You're not a poor mechanic. You're something else. Tell me the truth." For a long silence, a booker studied her face. Then he sighed. "My father built an empire," he said softly. "Construction, real estate, oil. Before he died, he left it in my care. But I learned early that wealth attracts snakes, women who love money, friends who betray, family who bleed you dry. So I chose to live simply, to find someone who could love me for me." Chinaza staggered back. "So, all this time, you tested me?" "No," a booker said gently. "I just wanted peace. And a wife who wouldn't marry me for money." Chinaza's face crumpled with guilt and anger. "And what did you find? A wife who despised you, who mocked you, who believed the gossip." A booker's voice was calm, but firm. "You found a man you thought wore rags. But now, you must decide if you can see the man behind them." Her chest heaved as the truth tore at her heart. Days passed, but Chinaza couldn't sleep. Every moment replayed in her mind. His phone calls, the bank alert, the hotel, his confession. One night, she finally snapped. Why didn't you tell me from the beginning? A booker? Do you know how much shame I've suffered? How many insults I've swallowed? A booker sat on the mat, polishing his old sandals. If I had told you then, would you have married me willingly? Her lips parted, but no words came. He was right. She would have thought it was a trap, or she would have married for the wrong reason. You hid your truth to test me, she accused. No, a booker replied quietly. I hid my truth to protect it. He stood, walking to the window. The world will laugh until it fears. But when that day comes, Chinaza, will you stand with me or against me? Her hands trembled. For the first time, she saw not just a man in rags, but a storm cloaked in humility. Chinaza sat at the stream, staring at her reflection. She remembered the way a booker carried her when she fainted, the way he cooked when she was sick, the patience he showed despite her resentment. But pride gnawed at her. He deceived me. He made me look like a fool. When she returned home, she found him repairing a neighbor's broken lantern. She watched as he smiled kindly at the children, as if he were truly the poor mechanic the world believed. Why live this double life? She whispered bitterly. A booker looked up at her, his gaze steady. Because power is loud, but peace is quiet. I choose peace. Tears burned her eyes. She wanted to forgive him, to love him, but anger held her back. That night, as she lay awake, she realized her heart was torn in two, half bound by pride, half pulled by love. And deep down, she feared that if she chose wrongly, she would lose not just her husband, but the empire hidden beneath his rags. News travels fast in the village. One careless whisper at the hotel spread like wildfire until it reached the ears of Chinaza's greedy uncle, Chief Okery, the same man who forced her into the marriage. He stormed into their compound, chest puffed, cane tapping the ground. So, a booker, you had billions while pretending to be a poor mechanic? My niece is not cheap. You must pay a bride price worthy of her status. Triple it. Immediately. Chinaza gasped. Uncle, this is not right. Silence. Girl, he barked. Do you know how much shame I bore arranging this marriage? Now it is time for me to enjoy. A booker rose slowly from his seat. He didn't shout, didn't tremble. His eyes alone carried weight. Chief, I owe you nothing. You sold your niece like cattle, and still you mock me. But be careful. Greed is a fire that consumes its owner first. The chief's face twisted. You will regret disrespecting me. Boy, this village belongs to men like me. A booker leaned closer, whispering with calm steel. No, Chief, this village belongs to truth. And soon, the truth will expose you. Chief Okery stormed out, but fear flickered in his eyes. The tables began to turn. Those who once laughed at Chinaza and a booker now lined up at their door. Market women begged for loans. Youths pleaded for jobs. Even the village chief came humbly, his voice oily with false respect. Sir Booker, we didn't know your true worth. Please, help us fix a community well. The water has been bad for months. A booker nodded calmly. When you mocked me, I did not change. Now that you respect me, I also will not change. My character is steady. Chinaza watched in awe. The same villagers who mocked her wedding now bowed at her husband's feet. Some even knelt to greet her, calling her madam. But the change didn't heal her heart immediately. That night, she confessed, a booker, I don't know how to face them. They laughed at me too much. Their respect feels fake. A booker smiled gently. Respect is not given, Chinaza. It is earned. And soon, they will respect you because of the woman you choose to become. Her chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. A booker began introducing Chinaza to his world. One morning, he took her to a board meeting in Lagos. She wore her simple wrapper, feeling out of place among women in designer gowns. Whispers floated across the room. That's his wife? A village girl? How embarrassing. Chinaza shrank into her seat. But when the meeting grew tense over a stalled project, a booker turned to her. What do you think, Chinaza? Her eyes widened. Me? Yes, you. She swallowed hard, then spoke hesitantly. If the workers are protesting, maybe it's because they feel unheard. Why not meet with them directly instead of only through managers? Silence fell. Then one director nodded slowly. That actually makes sense. A booker smiled proudly. You see? Sometimes wisdom comes from places people underestimate. Afterward, as they drove home, Chinaza whispered, Why did you ask me to speak? Because you are my partner, a booker replied. Not a shadow. For the first time, Chinaza began to believe she was more than a bride of mockery. She was becoming a queen beside a king. But not everyone celebrated. A booker's business rivals, men who envied his quiet power, began plotting. They studied Chinaza, saw her insecurities, and sent someone to exploit them, a sophisticated woman named Efima. At a charity gala, Efima cornered Chinaza with a glass of wine. Her smile was sharp. You're so lucky, Efima purred. But you should know, a booker has another life. Another woman, abroad. You're just his cover here. Chinaza's chest tightened. That's not true. Efima smirked. Oh, sweet girl. Why else would a billionaire marry a village bride? Don't be naive. The words poisoned her thoughts. That night, Chinaza lay awake, staring at a booker as he slept peacefully. Doubt gnawed at her. What if it's true? What if I'm just his disguise? Her pride reared up again, whispering, Don't let him make a fool of you twice. The trap was set. One stormy evening, Chinaza's emotions erupted. She slammed a drawer, waving suspicious papers Efima had planted. Tell me the truth. Abuka, do you have another wife? Another family hidden away? Abuka looked up slowly, rain dripping from his jacket. He didn't shout. He didn't defend himself with anger. Instead, he walked calmly to the shelf, pulled out a file, and handed it to her. His passport, his bank records, his travel history, all clean, all transparent. Hey, he said gently, every part of my life. Nothing hidden, except the parts one hid to protect you. But lies? No, I have none. Chinaza's hands shook as she scanned the documents. They were flawless. The truth stared her in the face. Tears welled in her eyes. Why do you bear my doubt so patiently? She whispered. Abuka cupped her chin, lifting her gaze. Because love is patient, and because I know what it feels like to be misunderstood. I will not punish you for what others planted in your mind. The dam inside Chinaza broke. She sobbed into his chest, torn between shame and relief. That night, for the first time, she slept peacefully beside him, not because of his billions, but because of his truth. The boardroom was filled with tension. Abuka's rivals had spread lies that Chinaza was uneducated and unfit to represent him at corporate events. Snide whispers floated as she entered, her wrapper contrasting sharply with their designer suits. She doesn't belong here. Is this who he married? A village girl. Chinaza's chest tightened, but Abuka squeezed a hand gently before taking his seat. When the rival presented false documents, accusing Abuka of mismanaging funds, Chinaza stood before anyone could stop her. This is nonsense, she declared, her voice firm. My husband is not a thief, and if you think a simple woman cannot tell truth from lies, you're wrong. The room grew silent. She pointed to inconsistencies in their papers, dates that didn't match, signatures that looked forged. Her sharp observation dismantled their scheme. One rival hissed, Who taught you to speak here? Chinaza straightened. Life taught me, and standing beside my husband gave me courage. The board erupted in applause. Abuka looked at her with pride, whispering, Now you are not just my wife. You are my voice. For the first time, Chinaza felt she belonged, not as a shadow, but as a partner. Chief Oakery's greed had reached its peak. He gathered reporters and tried to blackmail Abuka with fabricated stories. Abuka tricked us all, pretending to be poor. He owes me millions in bride price. But Abuka was ready. At a press conference, he revealed evidence of Chief Oakery's corruption, land stolen from widows, bribes pocketed from community funds, even records of unpaid debts. The crowd gasped. One reporter shouted, Chief Oakery, is this true? The chief stammered, Lies? All lies. But villagers, including those he cheated, stood up to testify. Chinaza, watching, felt tears of vindication. The uncle who once mocked and controlled her now stood disgraced before the whole world. Abuka's words cut deep. Greed is a loud voice, but truth always silences it. Let this be a lesson. The chief was chased out of the village in shame, stripped of his influence. That night, Chinaza whispered to Abuka, "You not only fought for yourself, you fought for me." He smiled softly. "For us, Chinaza, always for us." The village that once laughed now bowed whenever Abuka and Chinaza walked through. Children shouted joyfully, "Sir Abuka, Madam Chinaza." Women who mocked and now brought gifts of yam and cassava, begging for forgiveness. Men who called Abuka a pauper now sought his advice. At a town hall meeting, the elders admitted their fault. "We ridiculed you when we should have honored you. Please, forgive us." Abuka answered calmly, "I hold no grudge. What matters is what we build together from here." But Chinaza, standing tall beside him, added firmly, "Respect is not about wealth. It's about character. Remember this, so you don't mock another tomorrow." The crowd clapped. For the first time, Chinaza held her head high, not because of Abuka's billions, but because she had found her voice. At night, lying under the stars, she whispered, "Do you know, Abuka, they used to laugh at your rags. Now, they fear your truth." He chuckled softly. That was always the plan. Chinaza's transformation reached its peak. No longer the timid, mock bride, she became Abuka's right hand in philanthropy. She spearheaded women's empowerment programs, offering scholarships to young girls who had been forced into early marriages. At a large event in Abuja, she delivered a powerful speech. "I was once laughed at because of my husband's rags. Today, I stand proud because I learned that true wealth is not money. It is integrity, patience, and love. I found these in my husband, and I want every young girl here to know your worth is never defined by the world's laughter." The audience rose in thunderous applause. Cameras flashed. Newspapers the next day called her the billionaire's queen with a village heart. Abuka, watching from the front row, felt a tear escape his eye. For the first time, he wasn't the one being praised. It was her, and he couldn't have been prouder. On their wedding anniversary, Abuka surprised Chinaza with a trip back to the small room where their marriage began. The zinc roof was still patched, the walls still cracked. "Why here?" Chinaza asked softly. "Because this is where it all started," Abuka replied. "Before the world knew me, before they respected us. This is where you saw me at my lowest, and where I saw you at your rawest." She smiled faintly, tears glistening. "And I failed the test. I mocked you. I doubted you." He took her hands gently. "No, Chinaza, you learned. That is the difference. And love is not about never failing. It's about rising after the fall." She broke down, pressing her forehead to his chest. "I don't care about your billions. I care about the man who carried me when I fainted, the man who cooked for me when I was sick, the man who never stopped loving me even when I doubted him." Abuka kissed her forehead. "Then we are rich beyond measure." As they walked out, hand in hand, the villagers looked on, no longer with laughter, but with reverence. For the girl who once married a pauper now walked proudly beside the man the world feared, not for his wealth, but for his truth.